A woman cleaning out her late mother's jewelry box found a heavy silver and turquoise necklace with a crescent-shaped pendant, decided it was dated Southwestern costume, and sold it in a lot of old beads for $40. A few months later, that necklace sold to a collector for several thousand because it was an early Navajo squash blossom, and the family never knew. That's not a coincidence. The necklace didn't become valuable the day it left the house. It was always valuable. The value was lost the moment it passed from someone who didn't know what they held to someone who did, and that gap is where almost all the money in the old jewelry world lives. Here's the part nobody tells you. With necklaces, value rarely comes from what the thing looks like it's worth. It comes from the maker, the era, the materials, and tiny marks most never check. To you, an old necklace looks dated and tarnished. To a collector, it's a signature, a technique, a period, details deciding whether you hold a $20 trinket or a four-figure piece. The real question isn't whether old necklaces are worth money. It's why the valuable ones stay so cheap, and who benefits. The answer: knowledge here sits in very few hands, it's rarely volunteered, and a whole resale economy runs on it. So here are 10 old necklaces that ordinary people own without knowing they're worth a fortune. One warning first, and it matters more than anything else. Do not clean it. Do not polish the metal bright. Do not scrub off the patina. Do not have it restored, because on antique jewelry, that darkened patina is evidence of age and originality, and aggressive cleaning strips the very thing an appraiser reads to authenticate and value the piece. The first is the Navajo squash blossom necklace, the silver piece with round beads, curved blossom elements, and a crescent naja pendant. Most assume it's tourist jewelry, and plenty is, but the real ones are serious money. An early hand-wrought example, with natural turquoise in handmade bezels, can bring thousands, and a genuine turn-of-the-century ingot piece, attributed to a known smith, like Slender Maker of Silver, can top $8,000. The tells, handmade bezels, rather than machined ones, very smooth beads, worn from decades of use, and sparing early turquoise. And here's the trap. Many squash blossoms carry old coins from the 1910s or 1930s, and people assume the necklace is as old as the coins. It usually isn't. Most were made in the 60s and 70s, and the coins only date the coins. Flip it over, look at the bezels and the wear, and leave it as it is. The next one looks like something you'd find at a yard sale, and that's precisely why it slips through. The second is the signed vintage costume necklace, where the name on the clasp is the whole game, because costume jewelry has no precious metal and gets priced like junk, yet pieces by the great mid-century designers are quietly collected worldwide. A Miriam Haskell necklace with her hand-wired faux pearls, a Trifari, an Eisenberg, or a rare Egyptian revival bead necklace can command real premiums at auction, while an identical-looking unmarked piece brings nothing. The value driver is the signature, stamped small on the clasp or a hidden tag, plus the quality of the rhinestones and glass. The seller sees old fake jewelry. The buyer reads the mark, knows it's a signed Haskell, and pays without negotiating. If that surprised you, the next is where the antique money starts. The third is the Victorian mourning necklace, the dark, somber-looking piece made of jet, vulcanite, or woven human hair, often with a locket or a photographic element. To modern eyes, it looks morbid and unwearable, which is exactly why families discard it. But genuine Victorian mourning jewelry is highly collected for its craftsmanship and its window into 19th century culture, and pieces with fine hairwork, a dated inscription, or a signed maker climb well beyond what the plain materials suggest. Don't dismiss the dark, gloomy necklace. That gloom is the history collectors pay for. Now the list shifts to the pieces where a single material or technique changes everything. The fourth is the micro-mosaic, or pietra dura necklace, the Italian Grand Tour souvenir, made of thousands of tiny glass tesserae, or inlaid stone, forming a picture, a flower, a Roman ruin. People assume it's a painted trinket. It isn't. A fine micromosaic is a labor of astonishing skill, and 19th century examples are serious collector items. The tell is under a loupe, where a real micromosaic reveals countless individual glass pieces rather than a printed image, and the finer and denser the tesserae, the higher the value. Two near-identical pendants can be worlds apart. One, a cheap transfer print. The other, a museum-grade mosaic, and only the person who looks closely knows which. The fifth lesson costs people the most, without them realizing it, and it's about the mark and the metal. On any old necklace, the most valuable 30 seconds you'll spend is flipping it over to check for a stamp. A tiny 925, sterling, or a lion passant means solid sterling, not plate, and that alone can multiply the value several times over. Yet countless sterling pieces get sold as costume because nobody looked. The same goes for gold marks, 14K, 18K, 750, and makers' signatures on the clasp. People assume a silver-colored necklace is plated, price it as costume, and hand a solid piece to a buyer who checked the clasp in 2 seconds and said nothing. The mark is evidence, the first thing a knowledgeable buyer reads, and the last thing an unknowing seller ever checks. So flip it over and find the stamp, because the difference between plate and solid, unsigned and signed, is often the difference between $20 and $2,000. The sixth takes that overlooked value danger to its most expensive extreme, and it's the necklace hiding inside the pile that's worth more than the entire pile. The Georgian-era necklace, made before roughly 1837, is the rarest thing on this list, because so little survives, and it often doesn't announce itself. Closed-back settings, foiled paste or rose-cut stones, delicate handmade gold work that looks deceptively simple. People inherit these, decide the old-fashioned piece is worth less than a modern chain, and let it go in a bulk lot. This is where the most people lose the most money, not because the necklace looked like junk, but because it was disguised inside a fast transaction where a dealer offered one round number for all the old jewelry, and the 200-year-old piece got absorbed into the pile. Grief and exhaustion are the picker's best friends. So, the rule, plainly, never sell jewelry in a bulk lot. Never accept one price for all of it. Photograph every piece, check every clasp for marks, and research each one separately, because the entire value of a jewelry box can sit in one necklace nobody recognized. The seventh is the necklace, where value comes not from precious material, but from provenance. A piece tied to a specific person, a documented family history, or a notable maker carries a multiplier the identical anonymous necklace does not. An engraved dedication, an original fitted box from a known jeweler, a photograph of an ancestor wearing it. Any of these turns a nice old necklace into a documented object with a story, and story is what serious collectors pay for. The engraving on the back, or the name inside the box lid, is not clutter to be polished away. It's the piece's identity, and erasing it erases the premium. So, if there's a fitted box, a slip of paper, or an inscription with the necklace, keep all of it together, because the documentation can be worth as much as the piece. We've covered makers, materials, marks, and provenance, and the last three pull all of it together, starting with the piece whose value lives in a detail you'd need to know to even check. The eighth is the Bakelite necklace, the chunky, colorful beads from the 20s through the 40s that look exactly like cheap plastic to the untrained eye. That's the trap, because genuine Bakelite is fiercely collected, and certain colors and carved designs command startling prices, while modern lookalikes are worthless. The tells are specific. Real Bakelite has weight and a warm feel. It makes a distinctive clunk, rather than a light click, and a warm water rub releases a faint chemical smell. Rare colors, deep carving, and figural designs drive the value. So when you research, do not look at active listings, the pieces for sale with hopeful asking prices, because anyone can ask any number, and those are fiction. Look at sold listings, what necklaces actually changed hands for, and match the exact type, color, and era. Active listings tell you what sellers wish. Sold listings tell you the truth. The ninth is the material that got faked, discontinued, or reformulated. The "it used to be real" story that runs through this whole market. Real coral, real amber, real jet, and natural turquoise have all been widely imitated by plastic and glass and reconstituted material, so an old necklace made of the genuine article can be worth many times its convincing modern copy. The lesson is that you cannot judge an old necklace by whether the material looks familiar, because the familiar-looking version is often the fake and the real thing hides in plain sight. You judge it by testing, by the marks, and by the construction, the things the people who know read fluently while everyone else guesses. The 10th is the Grail, the necklace where every principle compounds at once, and the ceiling climbs out of sight, the most extreme version of the central truth, that the value was lost the moment it passed from someone who knew to someone who didn't. At the very top sit the pieces that don't shout their worth. An Art Deco necklace in platinum with old-cut diamonds, mistaken for paste. An antique necklace by a great house like Tiffany, Cartier, or Van Cleef, whose signature turns fine into extraordinary. A genuine Art Nouveau piece with plique jour enamel, that stained glass effect no factory reproduces cheaply. Every lesson converges here. Patina, the maker's mark, the era and materials, the box and papers, the warning never to clean, and the venue, because where you sell matters as much as what you sell. A rare antique necklace sold to a pawn shop or a scrap gold buyer or a bulk estate dealer is sold to whoever walks by, while the person who will recognize and pay for it is a specialist antique jewelry dealer or an auction house that knows the makers and periods cold. So here's the checklist that flips you from the person being collected from to the person who knows. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't scrub the patina. Leave every honest mark and darkened crevice where it is. Flip it over and find the stamp on the clasp, because the look of the necklace is only the beginning and the tiny mark is the truth. Keep everything, the box, the papers, the inscription. Never sell in a bulk lot. Research each piece on sold listings, not active ones. And when you've found something real, take it to a specialist, not a passerby. If you recognized even one of these, hit the like button and comment below if you've got an old necklace you can't identify, especially the dark or plain-looking ones, and I'd be happy to take a look. Subscribe if you want the part of the market the resellers already know and won't share. Because the truth, under all 10, is simple. These necklaces were never worthless. They were built to look like the ones people throw away. And the only thing standing between you and what they're really worth is knowing. That's not a coincidence either.